Hello dear students, welcome to EDUHUNT video lecture series, and now we are going to discuss about some adaptations which are shown by plants and animals towards the changing environment. What is an adaptation? Adaptation is the ability of a plant or any organism to survive, to exist in a particular environment. It shows some modifications. That is called an adaptation. And why plants and animals, any organism, shows adaptations? Because to exist in that environment, to survive, the organism tries to cope up with the nature. That is why it shows some adaptations, some changes, some modifications. అంటే మార్పులు వస్తాయి పరిసరాల్లో, అంటే ఎన్విరాన్మెంట్లో వచ్చే మార్పులను బట్టి ఆర్గానిజంలో కూడా కొంతవరకు మార్పులు వచ్చి వాతావరణంలో ఉన్న మార్పులకి అనుగుణంగా మొక్కలు కానీ జంతువులు కానీ సర్వైవ్ అవ్వడానికి చూడడం, దీన్నే అడాప్టేషన్ అంటాం. అడాప్టేషన్స్ మైట్ బీ morphological changes or anatomical changes, or they might be physiological changes, and even they are adapted well to the environment to survive and also for their reproduction for future generations. Anyway, even the behavioral changes also take place in the organism to survive in that modified environment, or to avoid some unfavorable conditions surrounding them. They show some adaptations. Organisms show adaptations to escape the situation or to avoid that unwanted situation. That is called adaptation. And some organisms will try to survive, will try to face those situations. They show physiological changes, they acquire some changes, and some of the organisms, they try to reduce their metabolic activity to survive in those harsh situations. And we discuss in this only some morphological and physiological adaptations of plants as well as animals. We know that desert plants are there, they are known as xerophytes, and they show the adaptations like they have deep rooted system, very well developed root system, because water is not present in the upper layers. So water is confined to the deeper layers of the soil. To grab that, to absorb that water from the deeper layers, what it has to do, it has to extend its root system. So that is why the xerophytic plants will possess well developed, very well developed root system, and they have a thick cuticle, and either they produce very scanty, very little tiny leaves, or the leaves may be modified into some other structures like scale leaves. They are small, if they are present they are small, and if they are present they are modified into scaly leaves, or they are reduced to spines. These are the modifications shown by leaves of desert plants. Usually desert plants possess no leaves. If leaves are there, they may be small in nature, small in size, or they may be in the form of another type like scaly leaves, or they may be present in the form of spines. They are reduced to spines because example is Opuntia, because leaves are involved in photosynthesis as well as loss of water in the form of water vapor, and this process is known as transpiration. Leaves are the sites of photosynthesis as well as transpiration. అంటే ట్రాన్స్పిరేషన్ జరుగుతుంది లీవ్స్లో అండ్ ఫోటోసింథసిస్ కూడా జరుగుతుంది. ఫోటోసింథసిస్ ప్రిపరేషన్ ఆఫ్ ఫుడ్ అయితే ట్రాన్స్పిరేషన్ లాస్ ఆఫ్ వాటర్. ఇఫ్ ద వాటర్ absorbed by the plant, if it loses its water, how it performs the other metabolic activities like photosynthesis and all. So that is the question. That is why they possess leaves in the form of spines. They are modified, they are reduced to spines. Spines are present. Example Opuntia, I'll show you. Okay, Opuntia is a desert plant. It is a xerophyte and it looks like this. I'll draw the diagram of Opuntia. Yes, it looks like this. These are all spines. Yeah, it is Opuntia, and these are the modified leaves, spines. These are reduced into spines because if the leaves are present in xerophytic plants, leaves, I said, leaves not only meant for photosynthesis, they lose the water. They lose the water in the form of water vapor, that is transpiration. The organs of transpiration are leaves because leaves possess stomata. Stomata are the pores which are meant for exchange of gases, at the same time loss of water. So if the water is lost from the plant, how it gets water for its, how it meets the demand of water for its requirements, metabolic requirements. That is why they possess very small leaves, very tiny leaves, or if they possess leaves, they are in the form of scales or they might be reduced into spines. మరి మీరు అనుకోవచ్చు లీవ్స్ లేకపోతే ట్రాన్స్పిరేషన్ అక్కర్లేదు కదా, సో లీవ్స్ ఆర్ మోడిఫైడ్ ఇంటూ spines or some other structures. Then what happens, how the photosynthesis takes place? We said that photosynthetic organs are the leaves. Then how it prepares food material? If not, if the leaves are not there in the plant, then how the food material is prepared? Yes, the answer is, if the leaves are not there, the stem takes up the responsibility of leaves. That is called phyllodes. Phyllodes antam. So this is one of the adaptations shown by desert or xerophytes, desert plants or xerophyte. And sometimes if the leaves are present, if the broad leaves are present, they roll and they fold. The leaves are folded in such a way to reduce the rate of transpiration. Even the stomata are present, but they are confined to some deep, some groove like structures, deep pits. They are known as sunken stomata. The stomata are not exposed externally, they are present in pits like bowl like structures. They are present deeper to minimize water loss through the transpiration, and they have special photosynthetic pathway, that is abnormal pathway known as CAM pathway. CAM is crassulacean acid metabolism. Crassulacean acid metabolism, it is a special kind of photosynthesis that take place in especially xerophytes, the plants which face the water deficit situation. deficiency. If there is any water deficiency, the plants like xerophytes, they perform photosynthesis in a special way that is called CAM pathway. Actually the plants in the tropical regions and in normal regions, normal plants, they synthesize photosynthesis by a special by a pathway or a bicycle known as Kelvin cycle. Kelvin cycle is the photosynthetic method, photosynthetic process that take place in an ordinary plant. But in xerophytes, where they face water deficit situation, water is deficiency there. That is why to recover the water, to meet the demand of water, they perform a special photosynthesis, extraordinary photosynthesis known as CAM pathway, that is crassulacean acid metabolism. And there the plants open their stomata during night and close during day. If they close during day, if they open during day, what happens? Because of sunlight ఎక్కువ ఉంటుంది, టెంపరేచర్ ఎక్కువ ఉంటుంది, దానివల్ల నీరంతా లూజ్ అయిపోతుంది కదా బాడీ నుంచి. టు అవాయిడ్ దాట్ దే క్లోజ్ ద సిచ్యువేషన్, ద స్టొమాటా రిమైన్ క్లోజ్ డ్యూరింగ్ డే టైమ్. నైట్ టైం వచ్చినప్పుడు ఇవి ఓపెన్ అవుతాయి. అండ్ దిస్ సిచ్యువేషన్ వేర్ ఓన్లీ ద నైట్ టైమ్ are active, the stomata are active during night time, they are called scotoactive. Scotoactive stomata, the stomata are scotoactive. And in some desert plants, leaves or stem are succulent. Succulent means they are like fleshy in nature. They store water in the form of mucilage, and whenever there is rain, whenever there is water available, then they store the water in that mucilaginous tissue. And some plants have high osmotic pressure in the cells to prevent desiccation. And in still other plants, root system is very well developed, extensively developed root system they possess. And desert plants show these earlier mentioned adaptations. Is it clear? Desert plants, that is xerophytes, they have modified leaves. The leaves may be modified into scale leaves, or they may be very little leaves, or they may be reduced to spines to minimize the water loss, that is to minimize the rate of transpiration. That is one point. And the second point, and even they if they have expanded leaves, then they show rolling nature, they show rolling or folded. And stomata are arranged in pits known as sunken stomata to prevent the water loss. And third photosynthetic method is through CAM pathway, crassulacean acid metabolism, they show, and their stomata are open during night time to prevent the water loss. And the fourth one is they have well developed, they have succulent body parts like stem, succulent fleshy body parts, and they have a very extensively developed root system. And some plants have high osmotic solutions in the cells to prevent desiccation, and some possess a very well developed root system. These are the adaptations shown by xerophytes. And the next one, zero organisms which live in deserts, xerocoles, desert animals. Besides estivation is summer sleep or diapause, also have morphological and physiological modifications and adaptations. They escape the unfavorable situation by minimizing their metabolic activities. They are very like dormancy lo untai, suptavasthulo untai. They prevent they avoid, they escape the unfavorable situations, unfavorable climatic conditions, unfavorable weather conditions. They have some adaptations, some morphological, physiological adaptations other than summer sleep like estivation and diapause. ఇవి కాక ఇంకా మార్ఫలాజికల్ అండ్ ఫిజియోలాజికల్ అడాప్టేషన్స్ ఉన్నాయి. అండ్ kangaroo rats of North American deserts have these following modifications, these following adaptations. They meet the water demand by internal oxidation, internal fat oxidation. Fat gets oxidized. During this process it releases water release అవుతుంది. Water is a byproduct of oxidation of fats. బాడీలో ఉండే ఫ్యాట్స్ ఆక్సిడైజ్ అవ్వడం వల్ల వాటర్ రిలీజ్ అవుతుంది. దట్ దే మీట్ ద వాటర్ డిమాండ్ విత్ దట్ వాటర్ అండ్ దే హ్యావ్ no sweat glands. If they have sweat glands, what happens? ఇప్పుడు ప్లాంట్స్లో స్టొమాటా ఉన్నట్టే, స్టొమాటా ఎక్కువగా ఎక్స్పాండ్ అయ్యి అయినా లీవ్స్లో ఉన్నాయనుకోండి, స్టొమాటా దే లూజ్ వాటర్ ఇన్ టు ద అట్మాస్ఫియర్. మనకి అలాగే అంటే యానిమల్స్కి ఎక్కువ స్వెట్ గ్లాండ్స్ ఉన్నాయంటే వాటర్ విల్ బీ లాస్ట్ ఇన్ ద ఫార్మ్ ఆఫ్ స్వెట్. టు ప్రివెంట్ దాట్, టు అవాయిడ్ దట్ సిచ్యువేషన్, దే possess no sweat glands. And then they are able to concentrate, they are able to excrete concentrated urine, that is very little amount of water is present in the urine. Most of the water in the urine is reabsorbed by the kidneys, and also they excrete the feces, dry feces. Without water they excrete dry feces to minimize water loss from the body. And they are usually, they live in the burrows. By burrowing the sand, they live in the burrows. And burrows lo unnayi ante temperature present in the burrow is lesser than the external temperature. And seal the burrow during the day and they come during night, come out of that burrow during night. And nocturnal in nature, nocturnal, on animals, if the animals are active during night they are called nocturnal, and if they are active during daytime they are called diurnal. We are diurnal animals, whereas the desert animals, to prevent the unfavorable conditions, to avoid that unfavorable conditions, they live in burrows. They keep the surroundings moist by living in burrows, and also they are active during night. They come out of that burrow during night. Anyway, and to avoid heat they are active for feeding during night. As I said, they are nocturnal in nature. And the camel, we know that it is the ship of desert. Edari oda antam kada. So camel, it has a like a hump untundi kada, camel వీపు మీద ఇలా పెద్ద హంప్ ఉంటుంది కదా. ఆ హంప్ ఏంటి అంటే దట్ ఈస్ ద ఫ్యాట్ డిపాజిషన్. ఆ ఫ్యాట్ నుంచి అది వాటర్ యూజ్ చేస్తుంది. దే హ్యావ్ లో బాడీ సర్ఫేస్ టు వాల్యూమ్ రేషియో అండ్ లో సర్ఫేస్ ఏరియా టు బాడీ సైజ్ పెద్దగా ఉంటుంది. పెద్దగా ఉండడం వల్ల సర్ఫేస్ ఏరియా కవర్ అవుతుంది. దే excrete highly concentrated urine and feces and can withstand up to dehydration up to 25%. 25% dehydration ni tattukoni avi undagalavu. And they have thick food pad and thick skin, hard lips. ఒంటిని చూడగానే మనకు తెలిసిపోతుంది కదా, ఒక్కసారి నేను చూపిస్తా. Anyway, we know camel has hump like structure which is the fat deposition site, and they have a heavy body where there is high surface area to body ratio, and they have thick foot pad and very thick skin and hard lips. They have hump, as I said, storage of fat by which on oxidation of that fat it gets water, as we have mentioned in the previous slide, that water is a byproduct of oxidation of fat. Here also in camel, it gets water by oxidizing its fat that is deposited in the hump. And in desert lizards, they maintain the body temperature fairly constant by behavioral changes. ఇప్పటి వరకు మనం చెప్పినవి ఫిజియోలాజికల్ చేంజెస్, మెటబాలిక్ యాక్టివిటీస్ మోడిఫై అవ్వడం వల్ల వచ్చే చేంజెస్. ఇక్కడ బిహేవియరల్ చేంజెస్, బిహేవియర్లో చేంజ్ రావడం ద్వారా అవి అడాప్ట్ అవుతున్నాయి. అవి డిస్కస్ చేద్దాము. ఇప్పటి వరకు మనం అడాప్టేషన్స్, జీరోఫిటిక్ ప్లాంట్స్లో అడాప్టేషన్స్ అండ్ యానిమల్స్లో అడాప్టేషన్స్ చూసాం. జీరోఫిటిక్ ప్లాంట్స్కి ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఒపెన్షియాలో ప్లాంట్స్ లీవ్స్ స్మాల్ లీవ్స్ ఉండడం చూసాం. అలాగే ఇంకొన్నింటిలో స్కేలీ లీవ్స్ ఉండడం చూసాము. స్పైన్స్ ఉండడం, ఒపెన్షియాని ఎగ్జాంపుల్గా చెప్పుకున్నాం కదా, ఇది స్పైన్స్ ఉండడం చూసాం. అలాగే స్టొమాటా ఉంటే ఆ స్టొమాటా గ్రూవ్స్ లోపల, పిట్స్ లోపల ఉండడం, క్యూటికల్ థిక్గా ఉండడం, డీప్ రూట్ సిస్టమ్ అంటే వెరీ ఎక్స్టెన్సివ్లీ డెవలప్డ్ రూట్ సిస్టమ్ ఉండడం చూసాం. అండ్ ఆల్ దీస్ మోడిఫికేషన్స్ వీ హ్యావ్ సీన్ ఇన్ xerophytes. And also in xerocols they have modifications and adaptations. వాటిలో ఉండే ఫ్యాట్ని అవి ఆక్సిడైజ్ చేసుకుని వాటర్గా యూజ్ చేయడం, అలాగే థిక్ స్కిన్, లార్జ్ బాడీ సర్ఫేస్ ఏరియా ఉండడం, అండ్ అలాగే ఇంకా ఏం చెప్తామంటే దే హ్యావ్ ఫ్యాట్, హై ఫ్యాట్ కండిషన్, అండ్ డెసికేషన్ జరగకుండా ప్రివెంట్ చేయడం కోసం ఆస్మోలైట్స్, ఆస్మోటిక్ కాన్సన్ట్రేషన్ ఎక్కువగా ఉండడం, ఇవన్నీ కూడా యానిమల్స్లో అడాప్టేషన్స్ చూసాం. ఓకే, ఇప్పటి వరకు మనం ప్లాంట్స్లోని, యానిమల్స్లోని సమ్ సార్ట్ ఆఫ్ అడాప్టేషన్స్ టు ద సరౌండింగ్ ఎన్విరాన్మెంట్ అనేది చూసాం. నెక్స్ట్ సెషన్లో ఇంకొన్ని అడాప్టేషన్స్ అండ్ ఇంకా డిఫరెంట్ ప్లేసెస్లో సర్వైవ్ అవ్వడానికి కొన్ని టెక్నిక్స్ తెలుసుకుందాం. గుడ్ బై ఎవ్రీవన్, ఆల్ ది బెస్ట్.